You're entering Corsi Nation.
It's Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it is Wednesday. It's July 2nd, 2025. And thanks for joining us on CorsiNation.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. You can see us on X at Corsi Jerome 1. And you can see us also on Substack at Jerome Corsi PhD. .substack.com. That's Jerome Corsi and PhD all together. No periods or anything in that. Jerome Corsi PhD.substack.com. And please check out our 501c3, which is God's Five Stones, G-O-D-S, no apostrophe, spell 5, F-I-V-E, spell that out. And stones is plural, God5stones.com. It's on the David and Goliath story, of course. David picks up 5 smooth stones from a brook to go after Goliath. He picks up the right stones, the ones God intended to work. Well, that's the whole point of God's5stones.com. And we've done really good work and definitive work on the voter election fraud. And that's going to lead to President Trump's executive order coming probably in August or September to demand that we change the election voting registration rules to get proof of citizenship and voter IDs. That's coming. And President Trump is not going to let the midterm elections be stolen. A big story today is that the Senate passed the Big Beautiful Bill, which of course is a big, beautiful monstrosity, as all these big bills passed by Congress are. But it's a necessary monstrosity. I'm pointed out yesterday, and I'm going to re-emphasize today, that Donald Trump understands that if we cut spending dramatically right now, the economy would collapse, and that the global economy would collapse. The debt burdens are just too excessive right now for us not to continue spending for a while. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to be able to cut spending. Congress is never going to be able to cut spending. Forget that. They just spend more and more and more because the pressures are there to don't hurt this constituency, don't hurt that constituency. You can't take this away from us. Okay, all that goes on every day in Congress. And the congressmen are bought and paid for. They're bribed. They get money from lobbyists. All kinds of. Congress is corrupt right now. Too many millionaires, too many billionaires, too many people been there too long, too comfortable. We need term limits. We need to get these people out. Lindsey Graham, bye. Get out. Sick of you. You know, how many millions is Lindsey Graham worth and his boyfriend? Okay, look, the deal is right now, we're going to have to go to some form of cryptocurrency reserve and start taking some of these, non-discretionary items off the balance sheet, because we've gotten Social Security. We've robbed the Social Security Trust Fund for years. Congress has filled it with its IOUs, taking the cash for other programs it can't afford. We're really bankrupt. I mean, contingent liabilities. There's no way we can pay these bills, including Medicare, Medicaid. Let's just keep printing money. And eventually that game is a Ponzi scheme and it comes to an end. Now, if you take some of these obligations, like maybe Medicaid, Medicare, or maybe Social Security, and you begin with the dollar's a fiat currency, it's just like a cryptocurrency, except the United States government's behind it. We've been downgraded twice, including by Moody's. And, gold today is still trading at $3,338 an ounce, and silver $36.26 an ounce. I continue to say, talk to Swiss America. I notice people are not doing it, but you're foolish if you don't start talking to get a self-directed IRA or buy some gold and silver. And I'm going to post the book in a minute and talk about the free book you can get. But my point here is that the book is how the coming global crash will create an historic gold rush. And we'll talk about the economic situation and the fact that the fiat currencies of the world are broken and collapsing. Get a copy of this book and read it. 1-800-519-6268. I know people aren't reading these days, but this one I think was it's a short book, but if you want to really grasp how we've trashed currency, money across the globe, including in Europe and including Russia and everybody else with fiat currencies, get the book at 1-800-519-6268. And we're going to have to come up with, you pay Social Security to the young in XRP, which is about $2 a unit right now, and it goes to 2,000. They made a huge windfall. A lot of people would take that. And I think cryptocurrencies managed privately are less likely to deteriorate versus the dollar. The dollar given to politicians, they'll just spend it. De Tocqueville knew that. So once politicians catch on that they can advance their careers by spending from the public treasury, the game is over. And he was right. So therefore, a private company restricting the supply of a cryptocurrency to increase its value is more reliable to maintain a valuable crypto value than the dollar, which is going to deteriorate because of the dynamics of spending. Okay, that's a difficult point to get, but I think you're going to be hearing much more about it as Trump's already caught on to the idea. And so therefore, we all need to catch up with Trump at this point. Okay, now this bill passed, and it's got all kinds of spending in it. When it gets back to the House is going to object. I thought the greatest comedy act was this Murkowski from Alaska, who's cheated in her elections all kinds of times and really doesn't deserve to be senator up in Alaska. She's a rhino completely. And so they had to bend her arm to get her vote. And she came walking into the Senate in a blanket for the late 3 a.m. vote. Chris, why don't you post that picture? Let's talk about it for a minute. I mean, this Murkowski is really a character. There she is coming in with her blanket and coming into the Senate floor, or coming off the Senate floor, one or the other, with her blanket. And, you can see her there. Comedy act. Rand Paul, they basically bribed Murkowski at the end by giving her all kinds of benefits for more of this, more of that for Alaska, more money for Alaska. And Thune, at the final moment, got her to vote yes on the bill. But Rand Paul had a interesting exchange with her. Do you want to play that, Chris?
Well, that wasn't Rand Paul. It was a question about Rand Paul's comments, where Rand Paul,
Oh, okay.
it was a reporter. Senator Paul said that this bill,
Murkowski.
if you will, this agreement was I believe he put it. Well, the reporter will say, but I believe he put it to the extent of a bailout bill for Alaska at the expense of the rest of America.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Senator Paul said that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country. That's what Senator Paul said.
She's staring him down now. He's just asking a question. The guy's just asking a question.
Yeah. Well, she's saying that she fights for her state.
My response is, I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And
okay, that's enough. So she gets money for Alaska, and Rand Paul is right. And this is politics in Washington. It's how they do it. It's really an ugly process. And it's not a process that's ever going to contain spending. Forget it. I don't care who's the president. They're not going to contain spending because they themselves personally benefit from spending. And so therefore, why would they cut it? Makes no sense at all. Chris?
That is a tough tightrope to walk, by the way. You have to bring things home for your state and or district if you're in Congress. On the other hand, there's the national clamor to cut spending, or, well, on the left side, spend as much as possible as long as you take down the country. So those are the two things each representative and senator has to juggle. Having said that, this is a time where the nation needs to have everybody come together and streamline the nation's spending at this point.
It won't happen until it's just not going to happen. And I think Trump is going to cut more agencies. He closed down USAID, thank God.
There's a lot of spending that's going to be gone. And that's another thing, too. A lot of these perky things, they're going to be out of here, even with the next few budgets. And hopefully that will mean the cutting of spending.
Well, and also
cutting of waste.
Close departments and start to reduce more of the federal government. I mean, you got to reduce the federal government by 60 or 70 or 80%. I'd reduce it by 90%. Get rid of these legacy employees who just block things. It's dysfunctional. We've got a dysfunctional government right now between Congress and the bureaucracy. And the only way to get rid of it is to axe whole departments like the Department of Education. Now, Trump is going to move the FBI into the Reagan building, where the USAID vacated the offices, I guess, yesterday. And that's great. But I think, what are they going to do with the old dump of the building at the FBI building on Pennsylvania Avenue? Well, they ought to turn it into apartment buildings for veterans.
They could do that.
Yeah, do something with it, or tear it down and make it a parking lot, but don't build another federal building there.
Yeah, call veterans first. Maybe they'll help out, right?
Veterans first. We'll get Josh on the.
I think we should get him on the case.
Josh Messias will take care of this. We'll just get him in there, and we're creating a Veterans First organization, and we'll have a lot more about that in the coming weeks. But we've created Veterans First Foundation, created the Veterans First Project LLC, and we're going to have Veterans First Telemedicine, and they're all launching right now. Joshua Messias headed the Veterans for Trump. He's going to be the CEO of the organization. I'll be the chairman. Okay. Let's take a couple more stories. I want to cover this one about what Tucker was interviewing RFK Jr. and he dropped a bombshell that the CDC has been hiding this vaccine autism link. Okay, so now we're finding out the truth here, which is that the CDC has known all along that there's been 1,135% increase in autism risk from the hepatitis B vaccination. They give this to babies, and babies then become autistic. And it was intended to do this. That's the demonic thing about this, is that we have when medicine turns into killing people, then the CDC is headed by Dr. Mengele. Okay, and that's what we've got. We've got, Dr. Death is in charge of the CDC and the FDA and all these other health organizations that really are just proposing not to help people. This whole idea with Robert Kennedy saying this, again, now YouTube will say, oh, this is disinformation. Well, Robert Kennedy is the head of HHS. And if YouTube doesn't like what he's saying, he starts censoring it, YouTube ought to go out of business. Okay, so I'm sick and tired of YouTube. They constantly give us strikes for this or for that. They shadow ban us. And it's just, ridiculous. YouTube is, like Google itself, is too big, too powerful, too bent up in its woke agenda, and I'm sick of it. Robert Kennedy is telling the truth. And the whole CDC ought to be brought up for charges against humanity for making these children autistic. And starting with Fauci. Okay, it's time Fauci be brought to justice for international crimes against humanity and be brought on trial, like a Nuremberg trial was for the end of the World War II, the Nazi criminals. Fauci ought to be brought up on charges of being Dr. Mengele too. This little SOB thought he could poison everybody and get away with it. And the agenda that there are too many people and we need to depopulate. Yeah, well, he wants to depopulate everybody but himself. And he's made a lot of money on the patents that he's gotten registered in his work with these health organizations. And it's time this racket stop. Okay, now another one which has me equally upset has to do with Christopher Wray. So Christopher Wray, it turns out, has now been acknowledging that he he's not yet admitted it, but of course, this being brought out and he's been referred for criminal charges. FBI had reports, credible reports in 2020 that China had hacked the computers and was influencing the 2020 election. Of course, now there was a lot of things influencing the 2020 election, including the use of these algorithms in the state database to produce all these fake mail-in ballots that were run through the machines. The Democrats said, no, this is all legitimate. This is all, come on. They think people are blind. We can't see the trucks coming in with the ballots in the middle of the night being run through the machines multiple times. I mean, 2020 was a hoax, and it was the CIA that thought they could just lie to the American people and say, again, another horrendous, crime where the Chinese influenced the election was stolen for Biden, and Donald Trump is right. Again, as I'm saying, I'm reviewing now, it's beginning to be circulated, the plans, which will be the next executive order. Okay, I've got a 17-page draft based upon the work we've done at God's Five Stones of what's coming down the pike. And there will be this is going to be a tough set of orders. So, I'll just read you a couple of provisions of what's being contemplated. This has to do with how the precincts are going to be required to handle mail-in ballots. The poll manager shall write the results of in-person and absentee ballot hand counts conducted at the precincts on tally sheets, batched and controlled with a handwritten tracking document stating the results affixed to each batch according to state law. Documents must contain the date, time, and names of persons responsible for the closing and delivery with their printed names and signatures. Okay. Now, certification. All these things are much more. No ballots received after the closing of the polls shall be counted or included in the certified results, except those due to a state, county emergency, or court order. However, they shall be stored with the other election records and marked as having arrived after the election deadline with the time and date received. Voting shall take place in precincts only. Precincts shall contain no more than 1,500 eligible voters to facilitate timely counting and basic auditability of federal races. Now, these kinds of rules are designed to make elections fair, to make sure we know who's voting, we know the person has a right to vote, and we know the vote is cast and counted as cast. Okay, so the getting an absentee ballot is going to be hard. Counties shall authenticate each absentee ballot request that the voter provided a full legal name for the voter, full address, full date of birth, proof of U.S. citizen, and a PIN number, which must match the information on the county eligible voter list. County shall confirm the identification document, state-issued identification number, full legal name, and permanent address of any caregiver, family member, or person living in the voter's household who may deliver an absentee ballot request for a voter. Absentee ballots may only be requested by a qualified voter of the election for which the absentee ballot is requested. A qualified elector may request absentee ballots for voters in the household, but shall not request more than 2 ballots per household. Okay, these are tight rules. And if they're implemented, rules like these, we're going to find out how many Democrats are in Congress because of, voted in by algorithms and not by votes. And the Democrats think that they can run against President Trump on the basis of this mega bill, the big, beautiful bill. The voting is going to occur in 2026 in November. Okay, we're not even at November 2025 yet. So in the year and a half we have remaining, we're going to see massive changes in the voter registration rules and the voting rules for presidential elections. If the Democrats want to scream and cry and run their Muslim candidates against this and say, oh, no, we don't want to defend America, we want to destroy America, they can go to hell. I like the story, by the way, of Alligator Alley. And Trump went and visited it. This is going to be an area in Florida where they're going to hold people who are legal immigrants that they're going to detain, or whomever they're going to detain there. But the whole idea is that, the Democrats wanted to release criminals. The Democrats want the criminals to run the streets. They want Muslims running the country who are promising all kinds of free goods. And by the time we get finished, we won't have a country. The Democrats will be very happy with that because the Democratic Party is now a communist party that has morphed into a treasonous party. And they want to destroy America. Look at the things the Democrats are supporting abortion even after the baby's born. Kill the baby. That's okay with a lot of Democrats. Barack Obama said that on the floor of the Illinois legislature when he was a member of that legislature before he ran for president. I documented that in Obama Nation, and everybody said, oh, you mean Obama wants to commit infanticide? Yes. The mother wanted it, Obama was okay to kill the baby. He had no regard for that life. Okay, and that's the truth. The lie was, oh, no, Obama would never do that. Well, he did it. Okay, and so all the crimes committed by the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bidens are going to come out. And with the Department of Justice getting new personnel hired as a result of this bill, we're going to be able to investigate a lot of things. The next thing we're going to do in God's Five Stones is we're going after Act Blue. And we've already handed over to the Department of Justice an investigation by Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor has shown that Act Blue and the Democrats were taking drug money. They opened the border. They did it with the aid of Catholic Church. Thank you, Pope Francis and Archbishop McCarrick. We have this whole story. Chris will show you. We've got several broadcasts with Mike McCormick. We had that part of the story. Now we know that the money was into the banks like TD Bank, Toronto Dominion Bank, Canadian banks were laundering this money. And it was gotten out through massive mortgage fraud. So the top officials of Act Blue would buy $1 million houses and they get a $135 million bank loan, mortgage loan, which was documented in LexisNexis and then disappears. Okay, so we have this all documented, and the first article will appear early next week. It's already written, the document, the stuff, all the material is preserved, all has been delivered, is being delivered, and it has been delivered in safekeeping to Department of Justice. We're in the process of doing that right now. And the Department of Justice will soon expand the Act Blue investigation to how the Democrats participated in, created, managed, and benefited from child sex labor on the border, from the drugs on the border, including the fentanyl from China. The Pope was making deals with China and opening the border to China to do fentanyl. And the Democratic Party was happy to take the money from that and get it into Act Blue, where it came out in a mortgage fraud and paid Antifa and Black Lives Matter to destroy the country in 2020. This is evil. It's treasonous. And when it's fully exposed, there's going to be people paying for this with their lives because the capital punishment is still the end result of treason. And there were some very, very high places in which this treason started, namely the Obama White House. And it's fully documentable. And this is coming down the pike. So I'm letting everybody know that Act Blue is the demise of the Democratic Party. And that's tragic because the Democratic Party was once a proud party. I was raised in a Democratic family that adored Franklin Roosevelt for what they thought was saving us from the Depression and winning World War II. Again, the amount of manipulation by the CIA is astounding, and the intelligence agencies before that. And God willing, I'll have the chance to write a book. I've done all the research on that. FDR created Pearl Harbor by cutting off the oil to the Japanese and inducing them to attack us. So we had a reason to get into World War II when the American public did not want to fight another world war in Europe. And whether that was advisable or not, whether FDR was right or wrong in wanting us to get into the war, has nothing to do with how evil it is to lie to the American people to get what you want. If government can't tell the truth, we can't trust government. So I don't care what the justification was for FDR doing that, but it was wrong. He should have come to the American people and argued the necessity to get into World War II and won that debate. If we couldn't do that, then the country didn't want to go to war. Let the Europeans kill each other. That's what the country felt in 1939, and I think it's an argument that needs to be revisited. I basically, God willing, will hope to revisit that. Okay, so there's a lot going on right now below the surface. And one more article I want to cover, John Solomon is catching on to this. John wrote an article saying Trump reshapes the Middle East by boxing in Iran and facilitating peace between Israel and neighbors. Okay, now Trump is going to get Netanyahu to stop the killing in the Gaza. Now, of course, the Hamas is going to want to return with the Palestinians, but the place is a mess. And I think Trump will have a next stage of this, which will be to reach out to Libya. And I've been promoting this. I've written articles about it. Philip Escaravage, I've been working with, he was in Israel going back into the Obama years and going back to Gaddafi, reporting about how Hillary was killing Gaddafi. They want to create gold dinar. Hillary hated Gaddafi. The Obama administration destabilized Libya, and you had Blumenthal in there messing around in the oil fields for Hillary's advantage while she was utilizing her private email server to leverage the Clinton Foundation for money and bribes while Bill Clinton was running it as former president and she was Secretary of State. The crimes here are just legion. And the Democrats got away with it because they controlled the CIA and they controlled the media. Well, now Trump is going to sue CNN and probably criminally prosecute them for protecting illegal immigrants and having a program dedicated telling illegal immigrants how to evade detention and capture and being exported out of the United States, deported. The criminals. And by the way, Trump said he was also going to revoke the citizenship of people who came here and became citizens and yet were criminals. So we're looking at the criminal illegal aliens as the first target. But in the Middle East, what Trump has done with his massive B-2 strike on Israel to neutralize its program on nuclear weapons. And as I reported earlier this week, if you recall, Ayatollah Khamenei said that tomorrow was going to be a historic day. He was going to be the world champion. It was going to change everything. Well, he thought he had two nuclear weapons. And so Khamenei had given the order to detonate both of them in a barrage of, say, 5,000 missiles into Israel, with two being nuclear warheads on Tel Aviv. And the Israeli intelligence was giving about 70% probability that one of those two warheads would get through. So if you recall, China sent some airplanes over, and the generals who thought that the mullahs, the Ayatollah Khamenei deciding to commit suicide and become a martyr to produce in this Shiite idea, the apocalypse, where the Mahdi comes out of the well and Shiite Islam triumphs over Sunni Islam. It's a suicidal religion, and nutcases only believe in it. And so therefore this Ayatollah Khamenei, the generals decided it was unstable and he was going to cause World War III. So the generals got rid of the nukes to China. And the Ayatollah didn't have any bombs. Of course, the generals were also being decapitated by Mossad, assisted by the NSA in tracking down these generals from the Revolutionary Guard and also top scientists. Iran does not have a nuclear program right now. Okay, not one that can be made into a bomb. Trump also neutralized the Houthis in Yemen. Hamas is largely inoperative in Gaza, and a lot of the leadership of Hezbollah in Lebanon has also been killed. Assad is out of Syria. So Trump has set it up so that now the Abraham Accords can be brought forward, and countries in the Middle East, it won't be Egypt to start with. Egypt will still plan to get Hamas back into the Gaza and bring weapons in through tunnels that connect Egypt with the Gaza Strip. And we're going to have to watch for that. But Trump understands that the shooting has to stop in order to get a peaceful period imposed. And right now there will be an attempt to get Israel to agree to renounce its nuclear weapons program. And we're going to have the Abraham Accords extend with various Muslim countries saying they'll accept Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. They'll want to work economically with Israel to make the Middle East bloom. And Trump can do it with private capital. All we need is government guarantees, and corporations will come forward and put their capital into developing the Riviera and the Mediterranean, which will stretch across North Africa, across the Gaza, and it will make that desert bloom. That's the only chance we have for peace. And Donald Trump has decided he's not going to repeat things that don't work. For 50 years, we talked about a two-state solution to Israel. No, it's not going to happen. The Palestinians want to still get rid of Israel and kill the Jews. They would look at it as a two-state solution as just getting Israel to make some concessions that would weaken Israel for its ultimate takeover. Okay, so we're now yet in some transition. But when we get a bit of peace here economically for a minute, so that Trump knows that we're not going to go through the horrible crash that we could go through. But again, you're going to see gold at $4,000 an ounce, and if you don't want to have a gain, don't listen to me. Want to get a gain, buy some gold and silver. Okay, then they will appreciate. Whereas your dollar is going to continue disintegrating in value, especially with Powell at head of the Fed, another hate Trump jerk who thinks that I didn't lower the rates because of the tariffs. Well, tariffs are headed towards bringing in $1 trillion worth of revenue, and they're getting jobs to come back to the United States. But you've got guys like Powell and this Democratic agenda where they wanted to benefit China. Now, American companies coming back are finding out that with manufacturing costs higher, the American middle class can't buy their goods. Why? Because we've decimated the middle class. We've done every idea the Democrats have had doesn't work, and they have those ideas because they don't work. They were using communism and social justice as their, sob factor for, we got to help the poor. You got to help this group. You got to help this group. Well, that started in the 1960s. And yes, some public aid is a good idea, but having the society depend on public aid because there's no middle class jobs and the manufacturing is in China is a bad idea. Okay, this globalism, the free trade, every one of these ideas was designed to destroy America, and it's time they would get rid of all of them. Okay, I think we're seeing Trump having a presidency that is not just, headed in the right direction, but it's a change in kind. In other words, he's going to want to cancel the green energy scam and end the tax credits for solar and wind because they don't work. He's going to go back to hydrocarbon fuels. You're going to see nuclear fuel come on stronger. We're today, right now, we're into revolutionary change for the right reasons. And the revolutionary change is one where we're just restoring traditional values, America first, which means let's go back to economic values, go back to family, go back to God. The United States, godless society, starting with 1940s with Justice Black and others taking God out of the schools. That was the first step heading down the path to oblivion. And Satan loves it, but Satan doesn't rule here. Jesus Christ rules. We're going to build the kingdom again. And Donald Trump, I think, has seen that God is in charge of his life and that he spared 2 assassination attempts only by the hand of God, turning his head at the right second. A miraculous effort to escape that bullet that was headed right for his head. We're headed into a July 4th weekend, and I think we can celebrate again the revival of America. We'll be changing this program. There's a lot of things going on in terms of how we're going to play out the remainder of 2025. And I'm fundamentally changing some of my roles. You'll be seeing more on America First, more on things we're doing to reestablish the United States of America. And I'm going to work very strongly with the Trump administration to see if we cannot articulate what's going on so the American people understand the fundamental changes happening for the good. And we defeat these Muslim communists that want to run for mayor in New York. And Trump's right to say maybe this guy, Hatma, whatever he is, ought to be arrested and deported. The next thing we're going to have to deal with is the Sharia law and the Muslim forces that have been, thank you, Obama, who went to Cairo and said he experienced Islam on 3 continents, lied that he was a Muslim. He was registered as a Muslim in the Indonesian schools he attended as a child. He was raised in Islam. And of course, he's lied about that. And there are videos of him disparaging the Bible and ridiculing the Bible. Of course, those were all ignored and suppressed, as was Reverend Wright, who said GD America. That was all. Hannity tried very desperately to break that. Where I wrote about it in my Abomination in 2008. But finally, we're going to start getting the truth. We get the truth. There's a lot of criminals who are going to run under rocks. Christopher Wray, Brennan, head of the CIA, Obama, Biden, Susan Rice. The list goes on. Valerie, Jarrett. All these people deserve, and we need to get the light of truth shined on their acts, so we can see the evil that was at the heart of their administrations. The heart of darkness is satanic, and it needs to be banned from the earth. the light of truth needs to shine forth. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too, but please join me in 2 Chronicles 7:14. Let's get down on our knees and ask God to forgive us for letting the world get into this shape, and to beg for Donald Trump to have the continued strength and wisdom to carry out an agenda which I think is going to be transformative for God, for families, for the good. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you for joining us on The Truth Central. We've retired. This is now CorsiNation.com. We're going forward with Corsi Nation as our flagship. God bless, and we'll be back tomorrow for July 3rd, preparing for the July 4th weekend. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.